Nuketown, a map enjoyed by many throughout Call of Duty's history, with variations of Nuketown maps across the multiplayer through various games. But one variation we do forget sometimes is Nuketown Zombies. And of course, that is why we are here today, because we are here to see how safe Nuketown actually is. But before we get into today's video, I just want to say that there is a brand new safety check for Bus Depot now up for members. So if you want to see that video, then make sure to become a member today. Anyway, welcome to Safety Check. Okay, here we are on the lovely Nuketown. And of course, it looks very safe just from first glance. Yeah. Anyway, we have a couple of low tier hazards that we have to mention today, and I feel like the first one is the most obvious one because it is tripping hazards. Now you can see from the state of the floor, let's say, that it's not exactly smooth. All of these could definitely be tripping hazards just from what's happened to the ground itself. But then you take into consideration all the rocks and stuff that have fallen around here, and especially when you find all these wooden planks that are everywhere, and I mean everywhere on the floor, there is no way that you're not tripping over something on this map. Hell, it's probably more likely that you do trip over something than you don't. So tripping hazards is going to get a fairly low rating on this map, and it's actually going to get an overall rating of 40 out of 100. Next up on the list, we have the weather. Just like Transit, it's a pretty grey overcast, full of smoke in the air, and I mean it's doing a bit of everything. There's thunder and lightning going on in the sky. It looks like it's trying to be sunny as well, and cloudy. It doesn't know what it's doing, but the weather elements are definitely going to be a big condition on this map, especially the wind. So we are going to have to put it in there, and it is going to get an overall rating of 70 out of 100. Now next up on the list, we're actually going to go for shrapnel. Obviously there's not much left of windows anymore because they got completely blown out, but that doesn't mean that it's not all over the floor still. Plenty of glass all over the house floors. You could easily cut yourself on any of this, especially when you're going in and out of these windows like this little zombie here. He could have hurt himself on that glass there. This hanging out bit, I could scratch myself when I jump out the window. That could hurt. So we are going to have to put it in there, and it is going to get an overall rating of 70 out of 100. And we have one more low tier risk to mention, and it's actually hygiene. Now there's not much blood actually compared to most Call of Duty zombie maps, but if there's one thing I can't stand in a kitchen is roaches. We need to exterminate these guys. We can't just have them running around on our kitchen surfaces or by our cookers. That's not great. And if you're thinking, oh, this might just be one of the houses, it's not the other one, well, you're wrong, because boom, more cockroaches over the sink. Boom, more cockroaches over the oven. If I was this lady, I'd be screaming right now. So hygiene is definitely an issue, and it is going to have to get an overall rating of 70 out of 100. That does conclude our low tier risks though, and we can now move on to our medium tier risks. And the first one we want to mention is high grade burns. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, there is a lot of fire on this map. I mean, the shed is on fire. The house is on fire. The house in the distance is on fire. Look at the roof of this house. It's on fire. The sign is on fire. Everything is on fire. So there's quite a high chance of you getting a high grade burn while you're running around. And for that reason, it is going to get a 40 out of 100. Now, something not as dangerous, but still slightly a risk is vehicles. We have a big old bus here, and we have a big old lorry here right in the middle of the map, alongside some crushed vehicles that are on fire and some blown out vehicles by the looks of it. But they could still be an issue, especially with all the fire around. What's stopping a gust of wind from throwing a bit of fire towards the engines of these big boy vehicles? Not a lot. So with that in mind, we do have to put it down, even if it's not going to be as much of a risk, and it is going to get an overall rating of a 60 out of 100. Now this next one is an interesting one, because we've spoken about chemical hazards before, but never have I seen chemical hazards leaking through my ceiling into my kitchen. I mean, it is literally making the kitchen grow bioluminescent green. But what can I say? At least the cockroaches like it. Give these guys a year or so and they're going to be like the cockroaches in Fallout. Hopefully I'm not here by by that point to see that. And all things considering, like, I can go in the puddle, I can stand under the drip, I could be mutating for all I know right now. And it's not even contained. So chemical hazards is definitely going to have to go in there. And it's going to get an overall rating of a 40 out of 100. Okay, I'm just going to stop here real quick. And I'm just going to look at this house. Can you guess what the next risk is just from looking at this? If you guess building stability, you're definitely right, because look at the state of these buildings. Like, I can't remember my ceiling having a massive crack in it like this. You could bring the big bad wolf in here, you could probably blow it down with the state it's in. And there's nice big holes in the walls and the ceiling as well, which isn't great. And don't worry, it doesn't get any better in the other house, considering it's on fire quite a bit and it's still missing a roof and a wall. And you know, I always wanted a bit more sun in my house, but not like this, let alone like this. So building stability is definitely going to have to go in here, and it is going to get an overall rating of 40 out of 100. That though moves us on to our next medium tier risk, and it's actually electrocution. As you can see, there are generators around the area like this one, and it is sparking, but it's also sparking off these cut cables on these telephone lines. And by the state that this telephone line's in, it's very close to just falling over. And imagine if I'm here and it falls over and hits me, I'm getting electrocuted, let alone thinking about, you know, like the sparks coming off the side of the house here as well. It could definitely be dangerous. And if there's one thing I'm certain, I'm pretty sure fire and power grids do not mix. So I can't wait for that disaster to go up in flames. So it is pretty dangerous, and for that reason I'm going to give it an overall rating of 40 out of 100. So we are moving on to our final medium tier risk, and like transit, it's going to be kind of relating to the weather elements, because it's going to be suffocation. Now there's a lot of wind on this map, and it is blowing shed tons of smoke into the area, making it hard for us to breathe. And like I said in transit, when you're breathing in shed ton of ash and smoke, it's not going to do good for your lungs. So we're definitely going to have to count it as a pretty dangerous risk. Even though it's a medium tier risk, I think I'm going to have to give it an overall rating of 30 out of 100, because it is that close to a goddamn nuke. So you know the smoke's going to be extra dangerous. Anyway, now that we've mentioned that, we can move on to our high tier risks, and we've got two of them. The first one kind of relates to the building stability, because as you can see, a lot of it's falling off. And what's stopping you, for example, being stuck under two of these beams when they fall off and getting crushed? Yes, a lot of these pieces of wood from the remains of the house look like they are ready to fall off and crush you. Like if I was standing here at the wrong time, this massive lamp would have crushed me. So it's definitely a pretty big risk. And for that reason, it is going to get a rating of 30 out of 100. And our second high tier risk, again, kind of relates to the building stability. And when you look at things like this fan here, look how sharp it is on the end. Look how well it's hanging from the ceiling. It's only going to take a little bit of effort, and this could fall off and impale me. Let alone some of these planks of wood that are looking sharp. They could also fall off and impale me. And that's without my clumsy ass accidentally tripping over and possibly impaling myself in like these areas or something. So we're going to have to put impaling down as a high tier risk as well. And it is going to get an overall rating of a 30 out of 100. Next up on the list though is our first miscellaneous tier risk. And it's a pretty interesting one because it relates to the weather elements, but it also relates to fire, because it is these twisters. Look how dangerous these things look. You wouldn't want one of these to catch you while you're walking by. Luckily there's a fence covering me here, but they are definitely a risk. Fire and wind mixed together to create something like this, not good. So it's going to have to get a pretty low rating, and for that reason it's going to get an overall rating of a 20 out of 100. Anyway, let's get away from the fire for a minute and let's talk about our next miscellaneous tier. And this actually relates to this massive nuke that's gone off right next to us. I mean, this is the impact of the nuke here. This is how close we are. And what you might notice is there's a lot of green specks just floating through the air. And what might that be exactly? It's radiation, because nukes give off radiation. I don't think it takes a genius to know that radiation doesn't mix well with the human body, especially when I am this close to a goddamn nuke. All I'm saying is, why did my supervisors send me here? They should have known that this could be a massive risk and possibly end my life. It is very dangerous indeed, and there's no escaping it with these winds and how close we are. And for that reason, I'm going to give radiation an overall rating of 5 out of 100. because soon I'm going to be looking like a feral ghoul. Now, last but not least on this safety check, we are going to speak about a certain system within this map, and that system relates to the perks. Now, as we all know, the perk system doesn't work the same way in this map, but instead, every now and again, as we know, they fall from the top of the nuke, and they fall in the form of a meteor, which when they hit the ground could be pretty deadly, especially if you're under it. The only thing I will say, and it's actually the reason it's not going to get as low a score as you would think, is for two reasons. One, the meteors don't come that often. It's not too much to worry about. And second, we have so much warning when a meteor comes down from the siren that we could definitely get out of its way. So it is going to get an overall rating of 50 out of 100. But that, ladies and gentlemen, are all the risks that I identified during my time in Nuketown. And whilst we do have plenty of risks, we definitely do not have any safety features, which I believe is a first. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is. But since we have no safety features, let's have a quick recap of what we've seen today. We had tripping hazards with a rating of 40, weather elements with a rating of 70, shrapnel with a rating of 70, hygiene with a rating of 70, high-grade burns with a rating of 40, vehicles with a rating of 60, chemical hazards with a rating of 40, building civility with a rating of 40, electrocution with a rating of 40, suffocation with a rating of 30, impaling with a rating of 30, twisters with a rating of 20, radiation with a rating of 5, and meteors with a rating of 50. Now we combine all these scores together as always, and we actually get a mean total of 42 out of 100. Although, like many maps, it definitely suffers in some other departments, because first things first, we have more than 10 risks overall, which gives it a -5. On top of that, it also technically has 5 high tier risks, being suffocation, being crushed, being impaled, the twisters, and radiation. So it also gets a -5 for that. So when you take all these and combine them together, Nuketown gets an overall score of 32 out of 100. This is the first time in Black Ops 2 that a map has actually scored above 30 points, and literally only by 2 points even now. So with that being said, Nuketown is the 4th map now in Shut It Down, as I didn't realize last episode that I'd actually put town in the wrong category last time round, so that is joined in the bottom section, meaning that nearly all Black Ops 2 maps are actually in the Shut It Down category, which isn't giving Black Ops 2 a good reputation here. But that's not my problem. I am simply here to tell the crowd what is going wrong and how to avoid risks. Now, if you have enjoyed the video, of course, we will be moving on to our next map, which will be none other than Mob of the Dead next. And I can imagine, again, that's going to kind of follow the same path when it comes to safety. Even though it's a prison, I can't see it being very safe. So if you do want to find out how safe Mob of the Dead is next time round, then make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe for more. But apart from that, I hope you have enjoyed, and I shall see you all in the next video. But until then, stay safe.